You're watching Voices in Mystery, and I'm your host, Nancy Carlson. This is our 13th season, and returning with me today is Tony Perona, who's been on the show before. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for
It's nice to
being
be
with
back.
us. Tony's from the Indianapolis area and lives near the airport. You ever hear the airplanes go by?
At night, every night.
Every night. Tony, where do you set the books that you write? Are they in the Indiana area?
They are all three. This is the third book in the series that I'm talking about today, and all of them are set in Indiana. I've done that because I think Indiana is an interesting place. I mean, most people think of it as farmland and nothing more, but we have some rich ethnic heritage that I like to explore and some other things. So.
Set us up. Before you talk about Saintly Remains, your latest book, set us up with the whole series and the protagonist, and tell us about him.
Okay. My main character is Nick Bertetto. In the first book, Second Advent, he has just stopped being an investigative reporter, and he's done that because of some problems that his wife has had. And so he's sort of grappling with those problems, and in the midst of all of that, he's asked back to his hometown of Clinton, Indiana, to investigate a murder. And that sort of gets him back into being an investigative reporter, this time sort of as a freelance guy.
Amateur sleuth,
Right.
though, not a PI
Not
or
a
anything
PI.
like that.
Right.
And
And
he's
then-
of an Italian background?
He is, because I have an Italian background, and I wanted to explore that, and this was one of the reasons the first book was set in Clinton was because that's a very Italian-American area of Indiana.
It's a real town then?
It is a real town. It's located just north of Terre Haute, and a lot of Italian immigrants settled there and worked the coal mines right after World War I.
All right, now tell us what happens in, well, not too much, but set us up for Saintly Remains. It's a good title.
Thank you. The first two books were really more of what we call cozy and traditional mysteries. This book came about because I had just finished reading J.K. Rowling's Goblet of Fire, which is the point in the Harry Potter books where it turns from light to dark. That's where Voldemort comes back and he kills someone at the end of the first book, and it's a character you care about. And I loved the richness of that moving from light to dark, and I wondered if my series, which has a supernatural element in all the books, if I could do that too. And so I started, and I was reading about Columbine right about the same time as that. And if you might remember in Columbine, there's a young lady who's killed. And she's killed right after she's asked if she believes in God. And for a long time, a lot of Christian groups right after that happened were talking about her as an example for the faith and all that sort of thing.
A martyr.
A martyr. A martyr for the faith. In the Catholic world, a martyr for the faith would be considered a saint. And so I started exploring that, and I said, well, you know, she was supposed to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that's how she got killed. Wrong place. Well, I started thinking, what if she were the reason the massacre occurred? What if somebody knew that she would answer yes to that, and she was killed to cover up everything else? And that's how I came up with the plot for this. Was I sort of worked all that backwards. I started thinking, well, who would kill her knowing that? Why would they kill her? And so I just sort of worked the whole thing backwards, and that's how it came about.
Is with a school shooting or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, in this in a little town I'm calling it West Jasper, setting because they didn't want to set. One of the problems with this was they didn't want to set it in a real place.
Didn't want to encourage any.
It felt weird. There is a Jasper High School, and I could not set it in Jasper High School. I couldn't. It hurt me to think of a shooting occurring there. So I set up a West Jasper High School that's in the same town and did it.
That makes it sound safer, actually. So, well, that sounds wonderful. And does it have religious overtones, or are you able to write without doing that? I mean, would this be in a Christian bookstore, for example?
It is not inspirational fiction.
Yeah.
But I certainly come at it from a viewpoint of believing in God and believing in certain religious things. So because I come from that aspect, that permeates the book, but it is not an inspirational book.
What about the next book and the next one after that? How far in advance do you plot and plan and know that you have a future as a mystery writer?
I actually have deviated a little bit from this in the future. I've got
Really?
I've got a thriller that is sitting at a publisher's desk, and I'm also working on a different series, totally different kind of thing. Kind of goes back to the cozy roots that I had in the first book, but with, I mean, totally different characters and everything. But it's more cozy, and so I'm proposing that series. We'll see how all that goes.
Do you work on more than one book at a time?
I can't, and that's one of the reasons why I feel badly that I don't have a fourth Nick book right on the way. I do have a plot in mind for Nick that's going to take him back to Italy to explore some family secrets. And I even have a tentative title for it called Refugio Purgatorio. But we'll see.
Have you explored the coal mining industry that Italian immigrants participated in as a source of your fiction?
I really haven't too much. The first book does reference that coal mining activity and how the fact that it died out has caused the decline of towns in that area. Like in Clinton and other places, they've lost population because they've lost that industry. So I do explore that a little bit in the first book.
Do you write alone, or do you participate in writers' groups or have co-writers or anything like that?
I have a critique partner, and he and I exchange chapters pretty much weekly, and we meet and go over what we've had a chance to read of each other's, and his name is Phil Dunlap, and you may have interviewed him before. So I do that, and I'm also a member of the Indiana Writers Workshop, and there we also read each other's stuff. So
A lot of writers are shy and loners, kind of prefer to be in a dark room with a computer screen. Is it hard for you to do press interviews and go to book signings and such, or is it just, I mean, how do you approach that?
Well, two things. First of all, I came out of a PR background. I did PR work for General Motors for 10 years, so it's not quite so bad to do that. The other thing is that as writers, we spend a lot of time alone writing, and I think it's freeing to get out and talk to people. It's great.
Well, good. I'm glad that you're here, and for that, I thank you for appearing as a guest on our show, Voices in Mystery, and I appreciate it. I want to remind our viewers that Saintly Remains is the newest book of Tony Perona, and he's an Indianapolis area writer, and we're sure glad you were on the show, so thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.